We are back with another live episode of Bully Ball. I'm Jason Aponte, joined as always by Steph Sanchez and her hair. Steph, usually I say something corny like haven't seen you in a while to start these shows, but I wanted to ask you because I want to speak to Estefany. Can I speak to Estefany real quick?
Oh my god. Okay.
Okay. Benito's back. And for those that
Yes.
don't know, Benito is Bad Bunny. So on a scale of 1 to Chambea, how hard does Where She Goes go?
Um, it's all right. I give it like a 5 or 6.
A 5 or 6. That's funny because you know what the thing is when I heard the preview of it, I immediately got excited because it has that sort of New York drill,
Mm.
grime bounce, and I'm like, okay, that's good. I like that, and I got excited. Then I heard it, and I said, it's good. It's a good song. I have a feeling stuff that as the summer progresses, and then when we get out for training camp, that we're gonna listen to that song over and
Oh,
over, and we're gonna just be
absolutely.
like,
I already
and
am.
and yeah, and just be like, you know what, this is hard. This is a bop right here.
He could do no wrong. So
Right, right. I mean, after his performance at Backlash, I've just like been like Bad Bunny has me in a headlock right now, like with his music at this point. So, all right, it's a nice, good, cold opening to get everybody in here. So, you guys are here for 49ers Talk. The 49ers begin OTAs today. Media is actually going to be allowed. Yesterday was a quiet day because no media was allowed. The 49ers dropped a little video of Brandon Ayuk running around. But today's media exposure, so we're going to get some reports. Can't wait for, oh my God, Sam Darnold was electric. And then other people saying, well, Sam Darnold looked real bad. Like the conflicting reports is what I live for. That's
mm,
exactly what I live for, Steph. Like one person is going to say Sam Darnold looks like the greatest player of all time. Other people are going to say Sam Darnold was throwing balls, into the stands, right? Like I just can't wait for the conflicting reports. But what are you expecting to hear today?
I mean, obviously we're gonna hear about the quarterbacks, and I'm actually hoping we get some sort of spread. I know it's OTAs, but I want the spreadsheet. You know what I mean? I want to
Uh
see the tallies, because I want to feel like I'm there.
Steph, all right, man, go for it. Like, I'm
What?
not even gonna say
What?
anything. No, no,
What?
you're subtle with it. Like, and it's getting
What?
less. It's
No.
getting
Are you kidding? No. I'm Why do you think everything is a diss? See, like this is the problem because
bleep it out,
that's what
Rob.
believe it out, Rob. That's what started the last, imaginary beef.
Brouhaha. Uh
Yeah. So
huh.
no, that's not a diss. I'm legit. Like I use those spreadsheets. I made a spreadsheet this off season. It went hard. I mean, people love the spreadsheets. People make fun of the spreadsheets, but they are used and they are appreciated on my side. So I do hope that we get some kind of, tally as to how both of these quarterbacks are performing. Forget about Brandon Allen. Sorry, Brandon Allen, but no one's worried about you. Um, we
Wow, man. So nobody's really speaking about Trey Lance. Everybody's speaking about Sam Darnold, and then you go ahead and just take Brandon Allen out of the mix at like
yeah,
complete. Okay.
yeah. I mean, he knows
No.
a player.
It's- I'm sorry. On the bottom, it
Wow,
reads
wow,
for
Rob.
for our audio listeners. It
Well,
says Steph says Brandon Allen can burn in he double hockey sticks for the audio listeners. Good God, we're off to a race.
thanks,
We're
Rob.
off to an amazing start right here. Um, yeah, I mean, again, we've done the training camp stuff like where we've tallied the numbers and everything as well too. But I do think that again the context is lost, right? In those things. If you just put up the raw numbers and you're just like, oh well, Sam Darnold was 6 for 11, or Trey Lance was 5 for 12, but you leave out the part where receivers dropped 3 passes, or ran the wrong route, like all those things need to be contextualized. So the raw numbers, while they're good and everybody wants to hear those things, they don't paint the picture, and you do have to see it like with your eyes. You have to see it. You have to understand what's going on. So I kind of shied away from it at the end of training camp, like going into like, oh, it's 6 for 11, whatever it is, because those numbers leave out the important stuff, right? Like what if
Mhm.
an incompletion is, it's a well-timed ball, but the defender gets in there and knocks it out. Like all that stuff matters. So the raw numbers are going to be fine, but it's not the end all be all. And when people point to completion percentage in practice, it kind of makes me want to tear my hair out, just because again, there can be a right pass. It can be perfect. The guy could drop it, and that's an incompletion. There could be a perfect pass, and a defender drops it. At the same time, a completion could be thrown at the guy's sneakers, and he picks it up, and he makes a catch out of it. So, again, like, the raw numbers are the part that I'm not really going to put too much stock into.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great point. And I think just everything having to do with OTAs, we kind of have to take with a grain of salt, right? Because for one, we're not there looking at it with our own eyes, so we are missing some of that context, and that's just, it is what it is. I think when we consume reports from, say, the Grant Cohns, say the Matt Mayokos, Lombardis, I think if we see those conflicting reports, let's just say the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? Like, let's just agree to that. But I think it's good to get different viewpoints and perspectives, again, because I do think like the truth is somewhere in the middle. What did someone say in the comment, Jay? You got to be laughing at something.
Cody says Trey Lance is going to win the QB1 job, fix my marriage, my credit score, and my club foot. All right. I'm sorry. No. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm in a good mood today. Like I said, I went to the sports book yesterday, but go ahead.
This is great. Oh yeah, I heard. So you made some money. That's great.
Made some money, yeah.
That's great. But look, who's going to make money for the 49ers today in OTAs? Does anyone make money in OTAs? Because I think everyone kind of knows, like, it's just practice, man. And it's like no contact practice. So the offense is going to look great. So be prepared for those reports like, oh, this quarterback made a deep touchdown pass to, Jawan Jennings. Yeah, it was amazing. There are no defenses, like at least no contact with these defenses. So it's going to be all offense. You're not really going to hear much about, the offensive line, defensive line, things like that. So just take that with a grain of salt. I mean, I will also caution this, that some quarterbacks may look good in practice. I mean, there's some quarterbacks who look great in practice. And, when it comes to actual like game action, they're not as good, right? So again, that's why I think we got to pump the brakes on what we hear at OTAs. Yeah, I know we're all very excited, but still, the fact still remains that we won't know what happens with this quarterback competition until training camp, until practice, preseason, and we'll go from there. But I think everything now, we just need to keep a level head on everything.
Yeah, that's the thing. Again, and this can kind of tie into the improvements that we've heard about Trey Lance, and the story that came out, written by Matt Barrows, is a great article. Trey Lance is working with a quarterback coach, and all these improvements he's talking about in practice that can be there. It's when the pads start popping, and you really have to like show that in the game, right? And to your point about practice, like there's plenty of players, quarterbacks who are great in practice and they're terrible on the field. For instance, Jimmy Garoppolo is but Jimmy Garoppolo was a really bad practice player, but he was a gamer, right? Like on Sundays, he's a gamer, right? Like whatever it is, like it's again, the practice thing. Again, whatever you take away from this practice is going to, or the way that you're speaking about this practice, not you in general, I'm just talking to everybody. It's going to reflect kind of what you want to happen. What I mean is, if Trey Lance is 12 for 12 and you don't want him to start, you're just going to say it's practice. But if Trey Lance was 5 for 12 or whatever, you're going to say, aha, see, he's bad. I told you, right? So don't allow whatever you hear to perpetuate your narrative that you like. It should just be whatever happens and stay objective.
Because, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Jay, because like personally, I pride myself in being very like neutral, and like I try as hard as I can to be objective. And I think you do too. So like, I think I appreciate that about us. That's something I pride myself in as far as like my takes and all that. I just know that there are going to be people who see a certain report that fits their narrative, and every day it's going to be a different narrative, right? Like one day it's going to be the Darnold people. One day it's going to be the Trey Lance people who are going to be able to fit their narrative. and they're gonna be really loud that day. You're gonna see like these content creators say like, see, like, you know, Trey Lance is gonna prove everyone wrong. But we don't know. No, you don't know. You don't know shit. Bleep it out, Rob.
Bleep it out, Rob.
You don't know shit. So I think even now in OTAs, if something fits your narrative and you're just paying attention to one thing, that's not fair. You're not doing it right. You know what I mean? You got to look at all the information and, you know, build your opinions accordingly. But you can't already have an opinion and then, you know, massage that opinion when there are other, you know, reports coming out that fit your opinion.
That's the thing is everybody is looking to be right and not get it right.
Exactly. Like what? Go on, Jay. I know you're about to cook.
Yeah, I am. But look, you can't in one breath tell me that practice doesn't matter, right? Like if Sam goes out there and you wanted Sam to start, or you dislike Trey, or like let's just even say Brock Purdy, right? Like there, because you know, here's a crazy idea, Steph. What if you're a fan of the team and you actually wish that any of these guys who starts actually does well? I mean, it's
We're on
mind
the
blowing.
same page. We're on the same page.
So if you're looking at this and you're looking for something to perpetuate whatever narrative or whatever drum you've been beating, then you become someone who has lost objectivity. And that's a deep and dark place because people love strong takes. They love strong takes. They love, he said this from the beginning. Everybody wants that. The problem is that when you get away from that, you start to become someone who is now looking for something to continually push the thing that you have been on the side of, as opposed to saying, this is what I thought prior. This was my prediction, but this is what has happened. You'll always find a way to twist reality to whatever narrative you're trying to push. And that's the hard part. That's the part about this and OTAs and camp and everything, that you're going to see who's on whatever side of whatever, using whatever comes out of OTAs to perpetuate whatever they want. A lot of whatevers, a lot of W's. So the OTA schedule today, the 30th, and then the 31st. Today, Thursday, the 30th and the 31st. I apologize. Media will only be allowed today. So today's the day. And Kyle Shanahan will get to speak. I can't wait for that. I can't wait to hear what he's got to say. And then some players. So, you know, maybe we'll get, some good nuggets from maybe Trey Lance, maybe Sam Darnold, maybe some people ask some questions. Ty Austin, thank you, man. Strong Tate, Steph, and Jason are one of the best duos in the business. Appreciate you as always. Shout out to Ty. East Coast Niner guy. Love that. But yeah, look, it's again, take whatever comes from these reports as objectivity, but also understand that it's not black and white. It's a little gray, and you need to paint inside and paint by numbers, right? A completion doesn't mean accuracy. An incompletion doesn't mean that something was wrong. If a guy drops a pass, is that on the quarterback? Like, again, raw numbers are not going to tell the story. That's why you need eyeballs, and that's why stats only tell one part. If I could quote the great Rich Madrid, it's always better to just watch the damn tape, man.
Well, if you get OTA's tape, let me know.
I'm gonna have. I don't even know if they'll allow them to record anything, right? Like, because you know how it is at camp, right? Like they put the signs up, and everybody just starts looking around, and we're trying to tweet out updates, and they're looking at us like, "Oh my god!"
They were looking at you. Jay was breaking the rules.
No, I was not breaking the rules. Hey, listen, 49ers organization. I'm good. Let me in the building. I promise everything is going to be fine. You know, I'm not a crazy podcaster all the time. Anyway, speaking of Sam Darnold, I actually got a chance to sit down with Matt Mayoko, who, by the way, Steph, he's the man. Matt Mayoko is awesome. He literally is one of the nicest guys I've ever come across. Has always given me good advice whenever we've crossed paths. Was happy to spend time with me and give me, it says Jason interviews Matt Mayoko, his new dad. Hey, Dad, I didn't want you to find out this way. You're fired, okay? You're fired, Dad. You've been replaced by Matt Mayoko. My new dad Matt Mayoko, who I go to for life advice, I actually gave him a chance to explain his Sam Darnold tape. And it was a long answer, but I believe that he contextualized it in a way where whether you agree or you disagree, I do kind of understand where he was coming from. What he was speaking about essentially was arm talent. And what the part that I took away from it was when he said arm talent, when you say thrower of the football, generally means not a good quarterback because there's more to it than that, right? Kyle Shanahan spoke about that. And then he said, when I think about Joe Montana, I don't necessarily think of him as a thrower of the football. So he said that he didn't necessarily believe saying what he said was exactly a compliment. And I understand why people were so upset, because if you don't listen to all of the things that he said and you just take that one statement and run with it, you might lose some of what he was saying. I'm not telling you to agree or disagree, whatever it is. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to give you more of what he said. Steph, what did you think of that answer? I thought it was good.
No, it was great. And actually, like, I kind of started feeling bad for Mayoko because, I listen to 49ers talk, and people just need to apologize to Matt for bullying him over him saying this, because this poor man has brought it up in every podcast since.
I know.
And I'm like, man, it's eating away at him. Because like every podcast he tries to explain like what he meant. And I get it. Basically just saying he is a good thrower of the football, like you said. Yeah, and that doesn't mean that he's a good quarterback. So let's just take that for what it is. And again, you can agree or disagree. That's just how he feels. I know there's people who feel the same way. I mean, yeah, Sam Darnold was a 3rd overall pick. There obviously are some attributes you have to have in order to be, a top quarterback. Trey Lance also a 3rd overall pick, right? So there's some talent from both of those guys. And so I think what people are getting, really hung up on is that if someone says one good thing about one of the quarterbacks, it's because they don't like the other quarterbacks on the roster. It's like, you could say something good about any of these quarterbacks and it not have anything at all to do with Trey Lance, with Brock Purdy, with Sam, we can compliment these guys. I promise you, it's okay to say good things about all 3 of these quarterbacks if you want to. You can say bad things about all 3 of these quarterbacks if you want to, and it has no bearing on what you feel about the other quarterbacks, or at least it shouldn't, right? I know there's some people who, again, we're talking about the biases. I know there's some people who, are trying to paint a narrative. But when it comes to guys like Matt Mayoko, who, personally, like, I really trust his reporting and, his opinions on things. And great interview, Jay. I think, like, you had great questions. Basically what all of us have been wondering, about the 49ers, about his reporting. You hit it all. So I really appreciated that. And yeah, it was a great interview. So make sure you guys check that out on Jay's channel.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And again, man, Twitter has this weird way of, I like pizza, and people in the comments will say, well, why do you hate pasta? I don't get it. I really don't get it. The objectivity, to circle back to that, the objectivity is lost. It's just lost because people want to be right and not get it right. But, there was a lot of other things that Mayoko said that were really good, in terms of Frank Gore being somebody that he spoke to. Again, they spent time with the Jets. Frank Gore is a big fan. For the life of me, I don't understand why, because when Frank Gore was there, Sam Darnold was frankly bad. I don't know what exactly he did to make Frank Gore speak so highly of him. But I did ask him about, and I wanted to make sure I asked this question respectfully, but I did ask him about, hey, Matt, a lot of people have it in their mind that when you speak, you're speaking for the team. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want that to come off wrong, but I did want to ask the question because I think a lot of people have that in their head. Like, well, if Matt's saying it, he's speaking, they're giving it to him. So he denied that they're giving it to him. But in a way, Matt has always said, I am speaking about something because I've spoken to people in the building, and this is the sense I get. So essentially, it's not directly from the team, but it is from inside the building. Do you think that that's like, it's almost the same thing, kind of?
Yes and no. I mean, if someone in the building says something to Matt, is it with the intention that he's going to go and like, tell everyone about it? I mean, to Matt's point in the interview, what benefit does that really give them, right? Like, what does that really do for them? I just feel like I lost my train of thought, but
No, about Matt not speaking for the team, but speaking to people around the building. Is it the same thing?
I mean, I don't think it's the same thing, and I think it's an educated opinion. Like, you could call things an educated guess. This is an educated opinion, and I think we figured as much, right? But I don't think it's like he's this person who speaks for the team, because I know some people think that, right? And so I think there's like two extremes to it.
Yeah.
Like there's people who think he's just like a puppet for one of the 49ers, which he is not. Like that's totally not the case. He's a real journalist who, he's going to listen to things. Like, people are going to tell him stuff. And based on that, I think like he's going to have opinions, just the same thing as what Louis Riddick did, right? When he was on the Rich Eisen show, same thing as Greg Papa maybe was speaking from the same kind of.
I got thoughts about him, man. Whoa.
Oh yeah, we can talk about it. But it's like all these opinions, they're all kind of similar, right? Don't you think that's a little coincidental? So
it is.
It's not a coincidence. It's coming from someone. It's coming from inside the building. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if you get information, you're going to share it. You're going to form an opinion based on that information. You know what I mean? So I don't think he's doing anything wrong. And yeah, it is what it is. But I don't think he's some kind of puppet for the for the team.
Yeah, and if you guys want to check out that interview, it is on my channel. Shout out to Matt Mayoko. He was gracious. He's such a nice guy. Again, Dad, you're fired. I didn't want you to hear it this way, but you're fired. And real quick, I think, Rob, we got a few super chats that I wanted to make sure we go through. If you want to put them back on the screen, and then we'll move on and load up that Greg Papa audio just so we can hear it. Official BNA, thank you for the donation. He says Sam does throw a great ball. That's why he has so many TDs and INTs. Everyone can catch his passes. Ouch. Fried, steam fried right there. Good God. Alan's Cold says expectations on D Winters. I'll let you take this one, Steph.
I think he's going to be competing for the spot that Aziz left behind, right? And I think he has a pretty good shot at it. I think Oren Burks, because he's the veteran, he's probably going to come in as the top guy for that spot. But as the competition rolls around, probably in training camp, I don't know if there will be a real competition in OTAs. We'll be able to get anything worth making decisions on. But, I think he's going to get a fair shot at that. And frankly, I'm excited. If he doesn't have a role like this season, in which I think he very well could on special teams, but as a linebacker, I think next year, certainly he can have an even bigger opportunity, but who's to say what could happen this year? I think he's going to get a fair shot.
Absolutely. And don't forget about one of our favorite hyphenated name players, Marcelino McCrary Ball, as well too, right? So I mean, there's a lot of competition in that linebacker room. Yeah, so more quarterback talk. God, I will I just want this to be over with. But Greg Papa had some thoughts. I'm gonna let Rob roll it, and then we'll talk about it. I don't even want to summarize what he said. I just want to hear it.
Talent is amazing, but they gotta, he's the guy who said during an NFL game, "I'm seeing ghosts." They got to coach the ghost seeing out of him. They got to coach the turnovers out of him. He's got to stay healthy for one, obviously. But I think he gives the 49ers a really solid quarterback room. And I think if Sam gets a chance to play, he could be Brock Purdy of 2023.
Okay. Jay, I know it's very unsettling to hear these things, but based on what we were just talking about, one, people are hearing these things from the building, and two, people want to be right. So if you're hearing things from the building, you're like, okay, this has a good shot of being right? So let me just go ahead and regurgitate what I heard. It's unsettling because, if that's being said inside the building, you almost feel like, well, what about Trey Lance? No one's talking about him, right? Again, I think we can compliment certain quarterbacks without it being a reflection on any of the other quarterbacks, right? And I think it's somewhat speaking to the insecurity of our feelings towards Trey Lance, because no one is hearing people say good things about Sam Darnold and thinking, well, what about Brock Purdy? No one, not one person, but everyone seems to think like, oh, this. No one believes in Trey Lance because everyone is talking up Sam Darnold. I think it just speaks to the insecurity that we have on Trey Lance in his position on this team, which, we may have a point to be a little insecure because we haven't seen anything yet. It kind of feels like the team is, moving away from him a little bit, but I don't know, man. I mean, he did set it up with some context. He did acknowledge the fact that Sam Darnold saw ghosts, was seeing ghosts some points in his career, has had issues with turnovers. And he also acknowledged the fact that that could be coached out of him. And that's true. Jimmy Garoppolo had issues with turnovers, much of his time in San Francisco. And as soon as Brian Griese, came into the picture, some of those things improved. So yeah, I think it's fair to, one, we got to acknowledge all the things that Sam Darnold was before arriving to the 49ers, right? We have to. But then also, I think it's fair to acknowledge that this is a better situation for Darnold, right? And I think that's all that people are saying. Now, I don't know if I agree with he could be the next Brock Purdy for this team. Based on what? We don't know that yet. So I think I would pump the brakes on that. But everything else he said, I was fine with.
Okay. And I think Steph hit the nail on the head, as usual, spin facts. When you consider what would be the one place that Sam could revitalize his career, it would be here.
Yeah.
Is it possible? For sure. If he starts, I want the best for him. My problem with this is, and I continuously hear this from everybody, and it really makes me want to bang my head against the wall. There's a reason he was a number 3 overall pick. Come close, guys. Come close, real close, because I want to say this. Trey Lance was the 3rd overall pick also. Why are you not saying that about him? Why? Why? That's my thing. 5 years, and he's the number 3 overall pick for a reason. Isn't Trey Lance the overall 3rd pick for a reason? What happened? Why? I don't get it. Why is he never being discussed in that same way? Why is one guy with his sample size the number 3 overall pick for a reason? One guy with no sample size is never mentioned that he is the number 3 pick. It's not just Greg Papa either.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost everybody. I'm done. Rob, you can bring me back to normal. I don't understand it. That's the part, again, I don't understand it. I don't get that part. For me, it's okay for you to say, listen, Sam can do this, X, Y, Z, has arm talent. I think we all agree with that. Again, when I was floating the idea, and many others were, that Sam Darnold could be somebody that the 49ers take as a reclamation project 2 years ago, but before he went to Carolina, I was met with a ton of resistance. I don't want him. He stinks. He sees ghosts. Yet now he's here. And now, well, he's got all this potential, and you see it on the. That's what I was trying to tell you then, because I can pull up the tweets. I know exactly what I said. But yet, now it's completely changed. And that number 3 pick statement bothers the hell out of me, man. It bothers the hell out of me. I don't get it. Number 3 overall pick, Sam Darnold. Number 3 overall pick, Trey Lance. There's a reason you took Sam Darnold with number 3. There's a reason the San Francisco 49ers took Trey Lance at number 3. But yet, I'm so excited to see Sam Darnold as the number 3 overall pick with these weapons and his coaching. Oh, right. Trey Lance was a number 3 overall pick. He has the same weapons and the same coaching. Explain it to me, Steph. I don't get it.
I can't explain it to you. Because again, the people who are saying this are hearing it from inside the building. Like, I think we've established that, right? So someone in the building is very bullish on Sam Darnold. And again, it's fair to, I think, look at both the pros and cons of Sam Darnold in San Francisco. But why are we saying these things like right now? Like, can we just wait? Can we wait till we see them like on the field together? Can we wait till we like actually see these things happen before we start saying like, look, I think you did ask, not to backtrack on the Matt Mayoko topic, but like you did ask him about this, right? Like why does it feel like it's all like Sam Darnold and no one's talking about Trey Lance? And to which Mayoko said, well, last season it was all Trey Lance, right? Mm-hmm. So now Sam Darnold's the new guy, so now everyone wants to talk about him. Fine. But, still, I think it's very, again, it's just unsettling that these guys are going to go into a competition and all we're hearing about is Sam Darnold, right? They should be going to this competition on even footing, and yet we just keep hearing about Sam Darnold. But we did hear about Trey Lance, this week, and Matt Barrows wrote a great piece about the quarterback coach who worked with him, Jeff Christensen. Trey Lance working on his mechanics, throwing motion, all that. That's a great sign, right? I mean, these are the things we want to hear about Trey Lance. I think I would like to hear more like national media talk up Trey Lance a little bit. Maybe they're tired of that because, maybe they did it last season. I don't know. So they're talking about the new kid in school. I don't know. But this is good, right? Are we happy hearing about, Trey Lance's improvements? Because even Kyle mentioned it.
Absolutely. And again, I want to pump the brakes a little bit on the victory lap on this that many people are still taking. I feel like this whole episode is about being objective and trying to preach objectivity. So again, reading a nice report about Trey Lance, sure, it's what you want to hear. I still have to see it. And I have to see it done when the pads are popping, when someone's bearing down on you, because when things get heated, people revert to the things that they know as opposed to the things that you're trying to implement. This is exactly what you want to hear, but you still need to see it. Kind of going back to the objectivity thing, Sam Darnold could absolutely revitalize his career and be good. There's a world where Trey Lance doesn't pan out as a number 3 overall pick. My frustration is from the story just being, well, Sam Darnold has a chance to do this and this, and well, Trey's done. It's just done. I live in a world where I like to put the range of outcomes out there, and that's a broad spectrum. Mm-hmm. The range of outcomes could be anything from Sam Darnold is the guy who we thought he was to, oh my God, Sam Darnold has completely turned it around, and anything in between. Same thing for Trey Lance. Wow, the improvements have really shown. Look at him. He's going. Or, unfortunately, those improvements haven't been shown. And unfortunately, they're going to either move on or he just isn't the guy. The other part about this is like all of it's moot. That, we just did 20 minutes on it. But I don't want to say that it's like unimportant. But if Brock Purdy was ready to go, we wouldn't be talking about either of these guys because he is the guy who's going to be taking the quarterback 1 role when he's back. And he deserves that shot because of how he played. And at the same time, objectively, you can say 8 games is not enough for you to crown him as a franchise quarterback. That's an 8-game sample size. We've seen quarterbacks for 8 games light the world on fire. So there's optimism around Brock Purdy because you have a sample size that looks very good, and that's valid. There's optimism around Sam Darnold because there's talent and potential that's there, which is valid. But there's none of that optimism around Trey Lance. And that's the part that I can't jive with. I don't get at this point because he has an opportunity right here to actually win this thing back if he plays the way that they thought he would if he's, the 3rd overall pick. But there's no sense of that. And again, when we're talking about where these guys are getting it from, they're speaking to people in the building. It's hard for people to objectively say Brock Purdy has played well, but he may not be the guy. I mean, there's a lower probability of that because of what you saw. I think anybody who's optimistic about Brock Purdy can say he still has room to improve because he's only played 8 games, and that's absolutely true. But people have a hard time thinking of the other side, that possibly Brock Purdy regresses or isn't the same after the injury, in which case you'll need Trey Lance to be the guy that you thought he would be. But there's no discussion about that. And that's probably where my frustration's from.
Yeah, and I get where that frustration comes from, because I think I was frustrated with it at first too. But at the end of the day, I think I realized like what people say, what people's opinions are, is just that. It's just opinion. It's not truth. It's not going to be what plays out necessarily. You know what I mean? So let people say what they want. Let people in the building think what they want. At the end of the day, what's going to happen is what's going to happen on the field. And who is going to be the starting quarterback is going to be the quarterback who looks the best, week 1. Will that be Brock Purdy? Again, we still don't know this. It could be, Sam Darnold, could be Trey Lance. Hell, I'm sure there's a world where Brandon Allen could be that guy. But, I think we just got to be prepared for all outcomes, and we got to be comfortable with that. And we got to be okay with that. We got to be happy with the outcome again. So not having any, preconceived notions or narratives on who our favorite is, you might just be setting yourself up for disappointment. Just have no expectations at all, because anything can happen. It doesn't matter what anyone is saying about the quarterback position right now in May. It's just noise, right? So let's just see what happens in training camp. Let's see what happens in the preseason. That is the truth.
I see another narrative in the chat, and I'm not going to say it by name. Well, for one, the 49ers don't leak. Oh my God, man. Matt Miyoko said that he's spoken to people around the team. Frank Gore, who is now a scout with the team, is relaying optimism around Sam Darnold. Doesn't have to be John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan. This idea that the 49ers don't leak is probably the most overblown, overthought narrative in the history of the world. The 49ers don't leak what they're trying to do at pick 3. But optimism around a player is something that, honestly, anybody around the building can say. I despise the 49ers don't leak narrative. It is absolutely not true. It is absolutely not true. If we literally just sat here and spoke about Greg Papa and Matt Miyoko and other people saying that they've spoken to people around the building.
Even Louis Riddick literally said he spoke to someone in the building.
How on earth is it that the 49ers don't leak? Please.
Mm-hmm.
Let's knock this one off. Two sayings that I want gone from the 49ers vocabulary lexicon. Quest for 6, Niners don't leak. Get them both out of here. Get them both out of here. I'm done with it. I'm done with that.
Quest for 6.
Every team leaks, like Rob says. Goodness gracious. All right.
Yeah, it's true, though.
Everybody's literally saying we're speaking to people in the building, and that's exactly what they're doing. Mamiyoko name dropped Frank Gore, who's a scout. Greg Papa, it works for the team. What exactly are they not? And this isn't necessarily a leak. They are relaying optimism around Sam Darnold. All right. Steph, let's get back to OTAs. What's another battle that you're looking at? Because I have one in mind, and I wrote an article about it on Niners Nation, but I'll let you if you have any others.
Yeah, I mean, a couple, like I think wide receiver, there's so many wide receivers the 49ers added this offseason, I feel like, and I don't know, maybe they're preparing for life after Juwan Jennings, maybe they're preparing for life after Ayuk or Debo. I don't know. But the fact remains, they got a shit ton of wide receivers, and one of these guys are going to stick around, someone who hasn't been on the team before, right? So I'm kind of interested to see like who's going to stick around, whether it be on the 53 or the practice squad. But that should be a good one. Again, like I think most of the spots we're just looking at depth, right, for the most part, and so that could be exciting. One of the things where we're kind of somewhat looking at who can potentially be a starter, who's going to be opposite Nick Bosa, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a number of options there, many of which, we're still kind of curious about. Like, we don't know a whole lot about how that competition is going to shake out. Drake Jackson, of course, could be like the guy. Certainly, it looks like he's been putting the work in. But, will someone else like Clinton Farrell or, some of these other guys, step up and make that a tough decision? Who knows? So I guess I'm interested to see what happens there. And, do the 49ers feel so inclined to bring a free agent edge rusher in, right? If none of these guys are kind of, leading the pack there. So those are the two main ones I think I'm looking at, but also probably like linebacker as well. Who gets that Aziz role? Because I think whoever gets that role, I'm excited for, just because this team does such a great job at developing linebackers, and I just know it's going to be someone who is going to be impactful for this team. So yeah, I think those are the main three that I'm paying attention to. What about you?
For me, I think that there's something that's kind of fallen by the wayside when it comes to position battles. And I think a lot of people think that this position is just completely sewn up. It's free safety.
Mm.
And Tashawn Gibson is on a 1-year deal. This is his third straight 1-year deal. Obviously, he played very well last year, 5 interceptions. But I do think we're going to see Jair Brown a little bit more on the field. And I want to point to Hufanga's situation when Tart was there. It was clear that they wanted Tart to play, but they were pushing Hufanga on the field to get him reps, right? Like he would see reps. There would be times where Tart comes off the field, Hufanga was on there. And it was clear that they were moving in that direction. So that situation is Hufanga replacing Tart, but Hufanga was on the field a lot. And I do think that Jair Brown is going to be on the field, and whether that's 3 safeties, whether that's him taking free safety reps, one of those things, I do think that you're going to see a little bit more of Jair Brown. This team is enamored with him, and they love what he brings in terms of his versatility in the box, his ball hawking skills. I do think that Tig's going to play a little bit more than people think, and I do think that you're going to see him on the field with Gibson. And if he plays his way onto the field, the 49ers have not been shy about that, about pushing guys onto the field and making sure they get on there, whether that's special teams, whether that's on defense altogether. But I do think Jair Brown and Tashawn Gibson is something that I'm going to watch or try to listen to hear if Tig is popping off. Do the 49ers kind of roll with their guy of the future now? And Gibson's on a deal where it's 1 year. They're not going to get rid of him. I don't think that's going to happen. But he would be valuable depth if you feel that Jair and Hufanga give you a better chance to create more turnovers and keep yourself versatile. So I'm interested in that. I think that's something that it's almost a foregone conclusion that Gibson's here for 1 more year and then Tig's going to take over. I think that that's a fair way to view it. But I just think that a lot of people are not believing that Jair is going to be on the field. And I think that you'll see him a little bit more than you think. And the 49ers are going to try to put him out there. So
yeah, I think his playing time will increase as the season goes on.
Correct.
And to your point, this is something we've seen this team do in the secondary in the past, right? Where they kind of bring someone in, they kind of, tease them a little bit, see what they can do, and they play great. And that guy gets more time. Hufanga, we saw Gibson was that guy last year. And again, we saw Jimmy Ward kind of get, pushed out a little bit and change his position because you got to have Jimmy Ward on the field. But, it could be one of those situations where, Tig, he pushes his way onto the field, right? And I could totally see that happening. And let's not forget, Gibson, yeah, he played great last season. Steve Wilks inherited, Gibson, right? Jair Brown was drafted pretty much by Steve Wilks and this team. And again, they feel very convicted about about Tig. That's my favorite joke, by the way, Jay. Like anytime I get like they felt convicted. And that, that says a lot because they're not convicted about a lot of guys.
And that's the thing. Let's correlate it to Hufanga and Tart. Kyle and John inherited Tart. Hufanga was their guy.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, they understand what Tart did. And I was, me, I'm one of the biggest, Tart supporters, but they're going to push who they want and their guy. And, for in this instance, who can really complain after Hufanga put up an all-pro season last year? So it's going to be interesting. I think that's just something that people aren't really considering. And I think it's kind of just assumed that this is a redshirt year for Tig. I don't think that that's true. I think he's going to actually play. A redshirt year would be that he doesn't see the field at all. I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I really believe that they believe he is ready to go and play and ready to play now. And all he would need is reps to, only increase what they already believe in him. So, and JMO Niner says, I need your guys' input. Who's going to start on the other side of Bosa? Jason, Steph, what's your take? I think right now the smart money would be on Drake Jackson. But I wanted to kind of toss this back at you, Steph, when you're talking about the free agent pass rusher, right? So the 49ers signed their entire free agent class and undrafted free agent class for less than $1 million in cap space. That means $10 million around there is what they're left to mess around with. Now, do they sign a free agent pass rusher, right? Leonard Floyd, Yannick Ngakoue, Justin Houston, or do the 49ers take that money into the season and possibly, if you're talking about a move that can put you over the hump, maybe a player on an expiring contract that you can absorb, you leave that money available because injuries do happen or guys don't perform to their expectations and you're able to fill that role with a trade mid-season? Or do you just carry that money over and the cap increases and then you have another that $10 million right there is indicative of a team right now that I feel is going to play it by ear. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the free agent pass rushers that are out there are avoiding all of the OTAs, mini camps, all those things because they just want to get ready to play ball in training camp. They're keeping themselves fit. They want to go and they just want to play. But I do think the 49ers have afforded themselves this flexibility with this amount of money. And it's really an interesting thing because the 49ers can do whatever they want at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. And to your point, I think they will kind of play it by ear. I think that money was kind of, set aside or is going to be set aside for a rainy day. And that rainy day can come soon. That rainy day can come I don't know, week 12. Who knows? But again, for injuries that may occur, if any of these guys, we were saying earlier, any of these edge guys don't kind of look like they're startable opposite Bosa, then maybe you want to look at one of those free agents, right? So I think they will play it by ear, and I think that's the smart thing to do, right? Because you don't have to spend that money. Why not just look and see who you have? Did Drake Jackson, is he going to make that sophomore leap like they're hoping he will? If that doesn't happen, okay, let's see who else is available. But I think they're going to bet on the guys that they have right now. And in the past, that hasn't gone terribly for them. So, yeah, I think it's a smart move to just hold on to the money for now.
And if what I expect happens with the track record that the 49ers have, I expect the Nick Bosa mega extension before training camp.
Yes.
And that clears up more money. Because in the first year, that gives you salary cap relief. So that's another interesting caveat. The 49ers might be messing around with like $10 to $15 million going into the season, depending. And I do think like right before we go to training camp, we're going to get news of Nick Bosa's extension. If you look at, Trent, all these other guys. I mean, Trent signed or whatever, but I'm losing. Oh, Debo. During training camp, all of those things, right? Like right before you get it done, and that's kind of been their track record. So, the 49ers are in an interesting spot when it comes to what they can do with this money. And I mean, I hate to keep backtracking to the Matt Miyoko thing, but I asked him that same thing, and I asked him, is there pressure on this organization to go ahead and get this done? Because you do realize your windows shut quickly. The people that are trailing you catch up to you, and anything can happen. And he said that the Christian McCaffrey move wasn't a like all-in move because 2 years were left on the contract, so that keeps the window open, right? He pointed to the Rams in 2021 and said them getting Von Miller on a 1-year deal, like his expiring deal, that's putting your chips in the middle, and that's saying all in. So I did think that was pretty interesting. And then one more thing, because I know you guys are trolling me and you want to hear about it. We talked about the kicker. And Matt Miyoko frankly said, I don't know why Zane Gonzalez is here still.
Interesting.
Because it's true, right? Like, if you drafted Jake Moody in the 3rd round, There's no competition. What? Can he lose? Are you going to cut him? No. So what are we doing? Like Zane Gonzalez, I don't get why you're still here, and neither does Matt Miyoko. This just doesn't make sense. But I do feel that this organization, there's urgency, like Miyoko said. But after hearing him speak a little and him rationalize it to me, it's not like all in, because they do believe, again, when you've got Brock Purdy, who doesn't even count as one of your top 52 cap hits as your starting quarterback. And if he's the guy that they think he is, that's crazy, right? Like, that's a crazy amount of money that you're spending on quarterback. And the 49ers are trying to do something that pushes back on the league, meaning Patrick Mahomes is going to have his team in the AFC Championship. He's been there, 6 straight years, or the Super Bowl just about every single year. Josh Allen's going to have his team competing in that same way. Joe Burrow, right? Like the upper echelon guys, they cover up any deficiencies you have on either side of the ball because they're a difference maker in that way when you have to pay them that way, right? So the 49ers are trying to do something that isn't really seen in the league, which is not investing in the quarterback position to a high degree, but building out your entire roster and betting on elite talent at other positions to push you over the hump. So I think the 49ers are trying to do something that, they call me a madman, right? Like, when Billy Beane started Moneyball, he had a ton of resistance in the Oakland A's building, right? He had to replace Jason Giambi and a bunch of guys who went on to make a bunch of money, but he found a new way to get it done. The 49ers are trying to do something that hasn't really been seen. Like, if you look at the NFL Super Bowl winners, what's the one thing they have in common? It's like elite quarterbacks. So I like it. So, and keeping $10 million ready for the Kirk Cousins trade.
Hope not.
Well, I mean,
I know we make that joke, but it's like that's not going to happen just for the same point that you just brought up, Jay. Like they need their quarterback room to be cost effective based on the way that their current roster is built, right? They wouldn't be able to afford a lot of these other guys that they have that make up their roster, make up the foundation of their team if they go and spend on a quarterback like Kirk Cousins. I wouldn't hate it. It's just like I don't think it will happen.
I just want to prepare people. Kirk Cousins is going to be a free agent next year. Yeah. Prepare yourself.
We'll hear plenty 49ers Kirk Cousins talk.
Prepare yourself. Mm-hmm. This is why we have to hope that one of these 3-4 guys, because I don't want to leave out Brandon Allen. If I'm talking about like not forgetting quarterbacks, right? I don't want to leave him out, right? Like he's got a shot, right? This is why we have to hope that one of these 3 quarterbacks is the guy. Like undenied guy. Undenied. Because if he's not, prepare yourself. He who wears socks with thong slippers, he who wears gold chains with no shirt on the plane, he who yells, "You like that," will be the time of our lives. And we will be fighting for our lives because the national media, Twitter, everybody is going to run with that narrative. So to kind of cap this episode off, which I think this is one of my favorite episodes, Steph, because we preach a lot of objectivity, spit our facts. One of these 3 guys, please, for the love of God, wrap this quarterback thing up so we don't have to talk about it anymore. Please. I'm tired. And I'm not just tired because I spent a lot of time at the sports book last night and I was up until like whatever time. I'm tired of this discussion. Wrap it up. Someone take this job and keep it. I want a franchise guy, please. Is that so hard to ask, Steph?
I don't know, man. I'm not even sure any of these guys are like franchise guys. And again, not to backtrack, it might have not been in your interview. It might have been in like the latest 49ers talk, but Matt Miyoko said like, I don't think any team would trade their quarterback room with the 49ers right now, just because there is no guy in that room that's like a franchise guy. Like, yes, this particular team, 49ers, can win with probably any of these quarterbacks, but it's not like none of these guys are a guy. Like, they're not the guy. You know what I mean?
Dusty Gold says Jason misses Jimmy. You know what? I do.
Hey.
I do, man. I really do, actually. I really do. It's almost like you don't know what you got till it's gone. It is.
You miss
it is.
You miss stability. It's like
at least
yeah,
I
like
could set my watch to Jimmy.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you're in this relationship, right? And things get a little stale. And you start to say, well, I want to see what's out there. And then you get out there and you're like a cat pawing back, like, let me back in. At least I could set my watch to what Jimmy Garoppolo is. And it takes away the uncertainty. Whatever he is, I know what he is, regardless of whether that's going to, win. But yeah, Jimmy, I miss the way we were, man. I miss it. The charisma, the suit, the sayings. Like, I mean, look, I see him in that black suit, and I'm like, damn, look at that guy, man. Imagine what it would be like to have a handsome gentleman like that to be your quarterback. Must be nice. All right. This has been a cracking heater of an episode. And yes, Jason Aponte does not necessarily reflect the views of the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Thank you, Rob. Rob is fuming. I can feel it backstage, fuming that I even implied any of this. It's just jokes, guys. Look, again, and Joey says it, at least the inconsistency was consistent. Set your watch to it. Set your watch to it. I do like knowing what to expect as opposed to this uncertainty of which of these four quarterbacks is going to take it. So, Steph, what an episode. So, shout out to all you guys for checking in. Thank you guys for the super chats as well, too. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Gold Standard Podcast Network on YouTube, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed to Steph's channel at Steph49K. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, Jason Aponte, as well, too. Make sure that you follow on Twitter at GSN Podcast. Make sure you follow on Instagram at GS49ers. Finally got that follow back. For Jason, for Steph, we're out of here.
Peace.